Welcome to another edition of Daily Airline News covering the search for MH370. I'm Jeffrey Thomas and delighted to say once again joined by my co-host Richard Godfrey, the UK aerospace engineer who has taken Whisper technology, worked with it, perfected it as a tracking tool for aircraft and found a location for MH370. Good morning, Richard.
Good afternoon, Jeffrey.
And as usual, perhaps we can start off not with Armada 7806. We'll let that one go for a few more days. But what about Tan Su Yi Hao, the Chinese research vessel?
Yeah, the Chinese research vessel is underway in the Indian Ocean and going backwards and forwards along Broken Ridge, which is a very interesting geological area in the Indian Ocean and very interesting from a marine biology point of view. It is interesting to note that the ship stopped precisely when it reached the seventh arc, which is the center line of the MH370 search here. Broken Ridge extends both sides of the seventh arc for several hundred kilometers. So why would it choose just that spot to stop? Begs a few questions. It's showing restricted status, and one of the viewers asked yesterday, what does restricted mean? Well, a ship is either underway or it's moored in the harbor somewhere, or it's at anchor in some anchorage somewhere, or it's restricted, which means it is not maneuverable in for some reason. So, in other words, if another ship comes along, uh, they need to get out of the way. They can't expect this ship to get out of the way.
Mm.
And that's what restricted. Usually, it means there's an AUV or ROV or HOV deployment. This one guy yesterday also commented, "What's an HOV? I've been in the AUV and ROV business for years, but never heard of an HOV." Well, it was a new one on me too, so I don't blame you for that. Human operated vehicle is an HOV, as opposed to the autonomous underwater vehicle AUV or remotely operated vehicle ROV. I'm sure we'll have a few more abbreviations in the coming weeks to add to that list, Jeffrey.
Yes, and it seems from our video yesterday, our discussion yesterday, that the Chinese have got about everything you can possibly imagine and a few things you can't in their inventory. So really, I think it was a big eye opener for all of us. The research you did, Richard.
Yeah, they are world class in their current equipment, and uh, I'm quite sure the Chinese would love to demonstrate to the rest of the world how
How good
clever
they
they
are.
are
Mm,
in
mm.
both research, academically, scientifically, but also in finding MH370.
Yeah, that would be a colossal feather in their technology cap, wouldn't would it? Would it not? Now, Richard, the survey. We've
Yeah.
closed it off, and you've been working pretty hard at it ever since, trying to tabulate it all. What sort of results have we got from that survey?
Well, tremendous response, and we closed it last night at midnight UTC, which is 1 o'clock in the morning for me. And yeah, to find out the response, it kept me up half the night. So here's the sleepy version of the response. We
Mm.
have had in the last 4 days 1,425 comments. And out of that, from 920 different individuals, but there were 186 repeats. So there were only really 734 unique individuals commenting, and sometimes multiple responses. Um, in total, the responses were liked 490 times by 1,969 people. So we do like each other quite a lot.
Mm.
And we also reply to the 734 responses. There were 136 people who replied, a total of 271 replies. Some of them quite contentious, like you got it wrong, or how could you possibly say that? And others quite helpful and adding to the response. So the question is, what was the result? And overwhelmingly, the result was a murder suicide by the captain Sahari Shah. 88% took that scenario, and 71% were very specific about that scenario in terms that it was a murder and a suicide. It was the captain, and in fact, naming the captain. So that was um, kind of interesting. The co-pilot, only 2.7% thought he was involved, and only 2.6% thought a hijacker was involved. 4% a fire, 4% some form of decompression or hypoxia, the which led to a ghost flight, and a few people pointing out a single failure, but that was only 0.4%, or multiple failures, that was 2.9%. So overwhelmingly, the murder suicide by the captain was what the viewers concluded.
And of course, that's the broad industry view, behind the scenes and not really spoken about. So, yeah,
Well,
that's.
there were two airline pilots who responded,
Mhm.
and one of them has actually done the survey amongst all his former and current pilot colleagues,
Okay,
and he announced that his private survey, it was also the overwhelming view. So
that's very
yeah,
interesting.
it's not widely spoken about, and out of the 734 responses, only two owned up to being a commercial pilot
Mm.
currently employed by some airline. But it would be interesting to do an even wider survey. But I have to say this one is statistically representative because we've had such a large number of responses from different people.
Yeah. So, viewers, thank you very much indeed for participating in it. It's been very interesting to get your views and sentiments on this. I mean, most of our viewers are very keen MH370 watchers. We can certainly judge that by the comments that are made and the discussion that goes on between you all. So, obviously, folks that have followed this very closely. So, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
and I think there's more analysis to be done, and we could come back tomorrow to this because one of the interesting things is, apart from the standard scenarios that we went through, and I presented the survey results from the experts on the standard scenarios, there were a huge number of other scenarios
mm,
this time from the viewers. So about 90 different other scenarios, and they range from everything from the aliens through to remote diverting of the aircraft. They talk about the Americans and the Chinese quite a lot. The Russians weren't mentioned though. and Diego Garcia gets a few mentions. So there are a number of other interesting scenarios, and when it comes down to um, the endpoint, there are just about as many people who believe it was a crash, uncontrolled, to believe it was a ditching in a controlled manner or an
Mm,
attempted ditching.
mm,
So let's go into that tomorrow in a bit more detail because, I mean, we asked the question, what do you believe happened to MH370? But people actually didn't just answer what, but why, how, where, when.
mm.
And some people very strongly didn't just believe, they knew exactly what happened. Others were less certain and weren't sure. So there's a lot more to get out of this very interesting survey.
Great. Well, we'll do that tomorrow. So I've got a few questions, Richard, just to sort of round things out. This is from the Trigan Empire. That's an interesting little name. Gents, I keep hearing about the weather in the Indian Ocean, search seasons, wave heights, etc., but I'm confused. How is it that the Chinese vessel can go places that no one else can, stroke, will? Are they risk takers? Their vessels are bigger, so does that allow them more safety or perhaps help clear up some confusion coming from Olympia, Washington? So, yes, I've been to Olympia, Washington. By the way, I never miss your show. They're always interesting, and I appreciate the effort you two give. Thanks again. So, thoughts on that,
Yeah,
Richard?
very interesting point. The the weather in the Indian Ocean currently is really not that bad, and certainly for the Chinese vessel is big enough to cope with the 2 and 3 meter waves out there. The winds are relatively light at the moment. But Armada 7806 could equally cope with the 2 to 3 meter waves. So I I think the weather will close and will turn nasty. So it'll be interesting to see how long the Chinese vessel TSYH stays out in the Indian Ocean. But I think the weather's a bit of an excuse, frankly.
Yes, we were both very surprised at the sudden up anchor, and let's go to Singapore with the Armada 7806. It really surprised us, didn't it?
Yeah, it happened the day after the announcement that an agreement had been signed.
Mm.
So the timing of an announcement followed by the timing of a departure from the search area, yeah, it looks a bit strange to me.
And there's still no comment from Ocean Infinity on any of this, which
Yep.
they said they would, but they haven't. Anyway,
They
we won't
said
go
they
down that
would.
rabbit hole.
They said they would, Jeffrey, when there was something important to say.
Well, that's right. And I would have thought that would be important to say, but they haven't said it. So anyway, let's not go down that one. Kawasaki Z1900. Hi, a few more questions for you. Your program keeps bringing more information, but that just seems to raise more questions. You said the weather in the search area was deteriorating, and that was one of the factors that caused Ocean Infinity to call off the search. The Chinese ship is bigger and I suppose more able to handle rough weather. But when does it come too rough for the Chinese? If the Chinese find MH370, do Ocean Infinity miss out on their 70 million? Why would the Chinese look in places that Ocean Infinity have already looked? If their time is limited due to weather, wouldn't they be better to look in areas not already searched? If Ocean Infinity has found MH370 before the contract had been signed but withheld that information until they had a signature, perhaps they radioed their information back home and the Chinese intercepted it and decoded it. Ah, I think my tinfoil hat is on again. Anyway, I hope you can clear up some questions. And that's from John Barlow. Love your work. A couple of questions in there, Richard.
Yeah, and some with the tinfoil hat on.
Yeah.
So thank you for the questions, John.
Yeah.
When does it get too rough for the Chinese? Well, that'll be a very interesting one uh, to observe. I guess we'll see that in about 3 or 4 weeks' time. If they move further north, then they could stay even a few more weeks out in the Indian Ocean before they have to return back to their home port. Remind you, 2018, Ocean Infinity stayed out there till the beginning of June. So we could, but they were much further north when they stayed till June. So we'll see on that score. Will they miss out on 70 million? Afraid so. Ocean Infinity won't get that if the Chinese or somebody else find it. It's Ocean Infinity that have to present the evidence of finding it first. So that'll be interesting. Whether the Chinese intercepted and decoded a message, um, well, I think probably better not to comment on that. I'm sure there's all kinds of messages being intercepted and decoded all the time, though, between the various powers on a global basis. And did the Chinese look in the places that Ocean Infinity has already looked? Well, actually, we don't know that the Chinese are searching. We've got no evidence. We're speculating they might be. They happen to be in the search area, and they happen to have the equipment to be able to do that. But they are focused on the Broken Ridge, which is a interesting geological and marine biological area. And it could be that that is their entire focus. There is no concrete evidence at the moment that they are looking specifically for MH370. We have our suspicions, but we have no facts to prove that.
Yeah, indeed. Very intriguing. And still on that particular theme, um, Denzeld Worthy 6862. Hi, Richard and Jeffrey. Thanks a million for the updates you are posting. I'm going to sort of truncate this question. He says Armada 7806 scampered off to the South China Sea to another project in the Philippines, yet has apparently stopped en route close to the original MH370 supposed accident site. In other words, where it lost communication with air traffic control. Simultaneously, the Chinese have completed its work in New Zealand, scuttled off to the accident site on the 7th arc. So, what is going on? What games are Malaysian playing here? I smell a rat. Any comments on this observation?
Well, I smell several rats and a few other mice and snakes in the grass. But as I just said, we need to have concrete evidence. The coincidence is, obvious. Ocean Infinity leave and the Chinese turn up. It's not unplanned. Put it that way. So we will see what unfolds in the coming weeks, and I know people are eager to have the answer to this very interesting, mysterious story, but I fear we won't actually know exactly what's going on for quite a few weeks. Yep.
Johnny Raven 4217 says, Thank you as always, gentlemen. I agree with another viewer. China wants to put their technology to the test, and given that 153 Chinese souls were aboard MH370, they have every right to search, especially after 11 years has gone by. I wish that, like the International Space Station, nations of the world would collaborate far better on the search. Geopolitics appears to be getting in the way. Such a shame, and with each passing day, it's lost opportunities for countries and people to come together.
Yeah, very good point. We are very competitive with one another. Even our viewers were competing, for example, to be the first one to comment on it when a new episode is published. So there's quite a lot of competition between viewers in the responses to the survey. So competition is nothing new, and governments are not immune to competition either. And there are quite clear strategic objectives which clash, and the geopolitical scene will be very eager. Sometimes, however, there is collaboration. The International Space Station is one example, as you mentioned, but even the scientific collaboration going on board the Chinese vessel with eight nations involved and scientists from all over the world collaborating together. There are in total several hundred scientists who are on exchanges between China and other countries, for example. So there's a lot of collaboration, but what hits the news and makes the headlines is the incidences where collaboration fails and we start getting nasty and competitive with each other. But the human race is like that, Johnny.
It's unfortunately right. Lee Pilgrim 2071 says, "This is turning into a Tom Clancy novel, The Hunt for Red October. Too many questions now. However, I do believe the Chinese are looking for it, and we don't really know whether the agreement was if Armada 7806 finds it, the Chinese are contracted to begin salvage. It's just odd how 7806 is left and the Chinese are in this particular area. But again, we just don't know. True enough. Any thoughts
Yeah.
on that one?
Well, it is a Tom Clancy novel, or any kind of crime novel or spy novel that you've read recently. Um, it's got all of the makings of a great movie, and there've been, of course, several documentaries with all kinds of conspiracy theories and concrete actual theories put forward. Huge interest publicly. But as you point out, we just don't know. We don't actually have the answers. Nice that we have a survey and we have strong opinions and strong views, and we conclude that it is most likely or highly probable that it's Captain Sahari Shah and a murder suicide, hijacking of his own aircraft. But we haven't actually proven that. And we don't have the proof to which would stand up in a court of law. So, unfortunately, turning to the last page of the novel and reading the who done it at the end won't help you.
Hmm. So let's conclude with Miranda Hot Spring 4019. She reminds us that in 1960, the Trieste descended to the Challenger Deep, more than 10,916 meters, 35,813 feet below the ocean's surface. Going to 10,935 meters 60 years after that is hardly a remarkable achievement. Yes, I think we take your point, but it's still a remarkable achievement nonetheless.
Yeah, but good point made. 60 years previously, um, the very similar achievement was made. So, yeah, the Chinese hold the world record, but like all world records, there can be a tenth of a second difference between you and the second place. individual in the race.
I think what is remarkable is that from basically 1984 onwards, China has developed this amazing suite of underwater vehicles of one kind or another, and they're clearly holding world records and doing things that it would appear no other AUVs, ROVs, or whatever can match them on. So that's pretty remarkable.
Yeah, they're certainly very advanced in their technology.
Mm. So, viewers, that's all we've got all the time we have today. We are going to answer more questions tomorrow when Richard's going to do a more detailed analysis of the survey to bring up some more issues that you've raised. So, thank you for tuning in. Please subscribe to us. Please like us. Please leave us your comments, and do tune in tomorrow. And thank you very much indeed, Richard, for all your extensive work on the survey.
Yeah, you're very welcome. And I'll go back to bed now.
Yeah, please do. Thank you.